Alright guys, welcome back to another video, and in this tutorial what I want to do is I want to show you guys how to create your own custom AVDs, of course your virtual devices. I showed you guys how to use the default one earlier, but if we want to become expert app developers from the ground up, that's where we need to start. We need to understand pretty much what goes on behind the scenes, because after all these apps that people develop, they would be pretty worthless if we didn't have any phones or tablets to run them on. So that's what I'm going to be doing, and in the next tutorial, I think I said that last time, but in the next tutorial, I promise, we're going to be getting into the code, the designer, all that good stuff. So for now, hop up to this little thing. Remember, this is the AVD manager, and again, I already told you guys that I created my own custom one right here. And in the last example, you guys may have ran this one, and it may have taken up your whole screen. Probably pretty annoying. So in this tutorial, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to create your own custom AVDs. So first of all, go down here to this little button and click Create Virtual Device. Now, of course, the first thing we have to choose is what device do you want to create. Do you want to create a TV, a phone, a wearable, like a watch, or a tablet? Well, I'm just going to go to phone, and then once I click that, I get all of the definitions of phone. Now, don't let the word definition fool you. These are pretty much just different phones. Like if you went into, I don't know, like a Verizon store or like a Best Buy or something, this is pretty much the equivalent of picking out which phone that you want. So, of course, this edited one is one that I was working on earlier, but let's just go ahead and pick out, let's use the Galaxy Nexus. That was actually a pretty popular one. So this is the Galaxy Nexus phone. Now the first thing that I want to do is I actually want to clone this, because if I start just editing this, then it's going to mess up the default settings. So you always want to clone it, and this is going to allow you to use a copy that if you mess up with, then you just messed up the copy, no big deal. So first of all, since this is our own custom phone, I'm going to name this thing anything that I want. So we'll say that I don't know, we'll say that we're making the slimmest phone in the world. So I'm going to call my phone Slim Shady, the new phone that's going to wipe out Samsung, wipe out Motorola. Slim Shady is the next big thing. Alright, so anyways, there's my little daydream. Another thing that I want to point out is all of this stuff, again, we're going to be customizing a bunch of stuff on this phone later on, but this is pretty much the hardware configuration. Now, you don't really ever want to change the hardware configuration of your phone, because it's not like they ever release phones with like 720 by 18 million pixels. You know, the hardware always stays the same for the most part. It's the software that changes. So again, give your device or your phone a custom name and click finish. And now if you go to phone, you can see, okay, this is our custom phone, same hardware, we didn't do anything stupid to it. So click on it and choose next. So now that we have pretty much the phone itself, and by that I mean just the hardware, we can go ahead and start working on the system image. So this is pretty much saying what version of Android do you want to use. Now I recommend putting the latest one on it, just because, I don't know, you know that, knocked over my mouse. Actually, by the way, this has nothing to do with app development or anything, but I started to get like carpal tunnel symptoms. So whenever I would type like my entire arm, there would be like a nerve that shot up, and I'll be like, oh my god, in the middle of my tutorial. So I got this cool little glove that had like beanbags in it, and I also got these things called a vertical mouse. So go to Google and type in vertical mouse. That's what I'm using. It's like this goofy looking mouse that I don't know, it kind of looks dangerous to be honest. But anyways, got a little sidetracked there. Back to the video. So what we want to choose is what version of Android do we want to put on that phone we just made. Well, a system image is pretty much just a copy of all the system files and settings. Pretty much just think of it as like your main system, your main computer. So the one I like to use is just x86 from Google. These all are open source. But I always just went with Google because I don't know, they have like the best developers in the world, and you always know that their system image is nice, working correctly. It never gave me any problems, so I like to choose that one. Click next. Now here is where I like to do a couple of things to pretty much customize my virtual device. So again, this name looks pretty good. Alright, that looks good, that looks good. One thing that I like to do is I like to go to scale, and right now, the one you just saw, Bucky's phone, that was 4 dp on device, 1 pixel on screen. Now what this does is it just shrinks it to make it fit better on your screen. Because again, this screen size of the phone, it might be bigger than your desktop screen size. So again, whenever you're developing, it's going to give you some problems. I usually choose 4 dp on device. 10 dp is like a really mini phone. It looks like, I don't know, like the size of your, it's just way too small. So again, I'm going to choose, that was embarrassing. Anyways, moving on. So yeah, that's what I like to do. Now another thing I want to point out is this emulated performance, you can only choose one of these. And I'm going to recommend used host GPU. Now what this does is it allows the emulator to use your computer's graphics card, the actual computer, your desktop or laptop or whatever, to make it run faster. Now this snapshot, what this would do is it will pretty much keep the state of your emulator, so whenever you close out of it, it starts up faster again. So the reason I don't like this is because whenever you close your emulator, it has to save everything and it takes a little bit of time to close out. So I'm going to recommend use host GPU, which pretty much speeds up your emulator, and during your development process you can just keep your phone running. So you know, as long as you keep it running, you shouldn't have any issues at all. So now that we have our virtual device set up, just click finish, and this takes a while to actually create it. But once we have it created, again, what we can do is we can actually edit it to go to this button. And of course, if you ever want to change any settings, maybe, okay, that was actually a little too small, so I'm going to boost that size up. You can do it right there. And of course, to test it out, you can just click this green button right here. Now while this is booting up, again, like I said, during your development process, you can actually just leave this entire emulator running. You don't need to close out of it like I don't know, maybe in some other like programming languages you're learning, you actually close out of a program whenever you're testing it and then rebuild it. Well, the cool thing is you can just keep this window open and then click this to rebuild your project, and it's pretty much just going to restart the app right in your emulator, so you don't have to wait for this to boot up every time. So again, there you go. There's your emulator. Again, this one was just a demonstration. I'm going to delete it because I already have that sweet one, Bucky's phone, that I'm going to use for the tutorials. But if you ever want to make your own custom emulators, your AVDs, or edit them, delete them, now you know how. So now that we know how to make those, we can finally move on to the good stuff. It's going to be awesome. So I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.